Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another season of Library Talk and everything else. We really appreciate you being here. We really appreciate you allowing us to be part of your Thursday morning. I am DJ JC, and I'm really excited because I have a guest in the studio. I have Dr. Catherine Autry with us today. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Joelle.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of our first episode of the second season. So if you are just joining us for the first time, honestly, thank you for discovering the show. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the second season. If you've been a long time listener, we truly appreciate, your support of allowing us the opportunity to be part of your Thursday morning. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is a research-based radio show, which means that we look at a research question and then taking resources from the university library, we answer that question. So everything that we provide for you, resources that I provide, data that I give you is going to be based on the research that we've conducted for the episode. So every week it's something different. Every week we have an opportunity to talk about just about anything and everything, but there is always a library component behind it. So today, as I mentioned, we have a guest in the studio, and we'll let you know what the research question is as soon as we come back. Thank you so much. You've been listening to, and you're listening to, Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Again, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us back on to Library Talk and everything else. I'm your host, DJ JC. And again, we have in the studio Dr. Catherine Autry, and you were here last year talking about careers, and it was a wonderful conversation. But now you are here in another capacity because you are an advisor here at UTRGV, and you also teach. You're part of the faculty. Is that correct?
Well, first off, thank you for having me back again. It's been a ride this past year. A lot has happened. So a year ago, I was going through my doctoral studies, and then here we are. I am actually an official doctor now.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
It is so great to hear that. I mean, it was a arduous process, I am sure, and now you are done, and congratulations on that.
Thank you. So yes, I ventured out, and now I moved back to Brownsville. I am an academic advisor. And I am also part-time faculty, and I teach 2 classes.
You're teaching learning frameworks and a business class, is that correct?
Yes, decision analytics.
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't even know where to start with that. But again, thank you so much for being in the studio this morning, and thank you for being on the show. I know last time you were here, we had a wonderful conversation, as I mentioned, about careers, and we're gonna shift things a little bit differently today because on my first show last year, I spoke about social media, and I want to expand on that a little bit more, but I cannot ignore, and what we're going to do today is part of our research question is we're going to combine social media, but also with an event that occurred 24 years ago that we are still feeling the effects of, and it irrevocably changed the United States and possibly the world, and that is the terrorist attack of September 11th. Now, you have a connection to that, Catherine, because it is also your birthday today.
Yes, it is.
Happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you very much.
And we'll talk a little bit more about what you experienced that day, because I think for a lot of us that lived through it, and I know we have a lot of younger listeners who are starting college, and thank you so much for being part of the show today, but we also have some students that, have lived different experiences. We have older people that are listening to the show as well. And we remember if we were at an age where these things were happening that we have a recollection of, I don't think it's something that we're going to forget anytime soon. So I want to talk about my experience, and is it okay for you to share your experience of what you went through that day? And then we're going to shift into social media. And the research question for today is, how has the memory of September 11th been shaped and reshaped through social media platforms over time? Because the attacks happened in 2001, and social media started becoming prevalent in about 2003, 2004. And now I am sure there are so many things that are happening on social media today in celebration of 24-year anniversary of it. And the ironic part of us talking about social media is that I don't have social media myself.
No, you don't.
So I don't have social media. And so it's kind of weird that I'm talking about this topic. But what we've brought is some information. And again, we've done our research through the University Library's resources, plug, and put some things together. So we want to talk about that. But first, I want to ask you, Catherine, about your memory of that particular day. And then I'll share my memory of how that day just kind of unfolded for me.
Well, before we get started about my memory, I wanted to just inform everyone we had an event this morning at UTRGV regarding 9/11 and where it was student driven. We had a run this morning and then some events happening on both campuses, Brownsville and Annenberg. So it's always a great memory to have. Unfortunately, it takes a terrorist attack to bring us together as a community, as a whole. Me personally, I celebrate the whole month of September for my birthday because I have this guilty feeling of celebrating it on 9/11. I just always feel horrible. But 24 years ago today, I started off as a normal day.
It did.
My son was 6 months old at the time, and I was working in oil and gas, and I was on the phone with one of our managers. I was living in Houston, and one of the managers and we were on the phone, and he stopped mid conversation. He's like, "We just had an attack," and I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And I remember the conversation vividly where he hung up on me, and I'm like, I went to my manager. I'm like, "We just had an attack on the U.S." So we hurried up and we put the news on the TV because we didn't have social media. I mean, we had the BlackBerry, which really wasn't a whole lot, right? It was just a device, but we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have, our outlets that we currently have. So
Even the internet was
right.
very. I mean, there was internet. Obviously, there was back in 2001, but it
We had
wasn't
AOL. I don't know
exactly
if
dial up for a lot of us, right? For
right.
those of you that remember dial up and the noises that it would make as you were trying to dial up and use the computer, but yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. And so anyway, that was our news outlet. We waited by the TV as the news broadcasters bringing us information, whether it was misinformation or just information in general. We were waiting for them just to tell us what was going on in the world. And, we had scheduled, personally had scheduled, we're going to have lunch at Olive Garden. My family and I were headed out there, coworkers, but that day changed our life and everyone around us. I remember, of course, being in oil and gas and in Houston. At the time, we were the third largest city. And so we didn't know if we were next on the list. And so we got word from our CEO, and he said, everyone, y'all need to go and go take care of family. And so we did. We left for the day. For those of us, everyone left to go pick up their kids. It was kind of earth shattering. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if we were next. We worked in oil and gas, so it was that pipeline of what's going to happen next. Or we just didn't know our next steps.
And you talk about misinformation. There was so much going around. And again, I mentioned internet, and you'd have to wait as opposed to now where you get instantaneous updates through social media, whether it's misinformation or not. Mm-hmm. But all sorts of targets were becoming Disneyland, Disney World, oil, the Statue of Liberty. I remember all this was just being passed around, and it just took, I guess, everybody kind of getting together and just sitting around the TV. It was a time that we were sitting around TVs still. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was a teacher at the time, and that particular day was also our principal's birthday. And one of the history teachers had organized several students to sing happy birthday to our principal during the morning announcements. And after they finished, we hear this announcement again from her a couple of minutes afterwards. And at the time, and it's very unfortunate, but at the time, there had been a lot of school violence that was going on. And when she came back online through the PA system, we thought she was going to tell us something had happened somewhere, because she mentioned something happened in New York. And for some of us, we thought, oh my goodness, please not again, another, school violence. But she said a commercial plane has crashed into one of the towers of the Trade Center. And she said, I know you don't have televisions in your classroom, because we didn't. And again, internet's real sketchy at the time. And she said, if anybody is off next period, I have a television going in my office. If you're off next period, come by and we can see some updates. And the teacher and I that were working together, we both, after our class ended, we both headed to the office. We didn't have a next period. And as we're walking into the office, the second plane is hitting the other tower. And so by this point, we knew it was no longer an accident. This was a coordinated attack on the United States. And so then you start to see panic. You start to see, you know, worry and concern. And so she has the news going on. And at this point, now things are just really in disarray. And I want to mention something because I know you have a connection to it. Not only is your birthday, but you're also a military veteran and you were in the Air Force.
Yes.
And the teacher that I was working with, Letty, she was concerned because her brother was also in the Air Force, stationed in Germany. And so all of this is just happening at the same time. And it's this chaos and misinformation. And I remember that day you said you were going to lunch to Olive Garden. We had organized a lunch to go to Chili's because we had an in-service in the afternoon. And so we always took off early and then we'd go to lunch and then we'd go to this in-service. And so we still ended up going to Chili's for lunch, but the department head, which was, again, my friend and fellow teacher, Letty, she said, you know what? I'm not in the mood to go to this in-service. And so we went to lunch and the televisions were just all on news of the attack. And so we go back to our classrooms, we go back to the school, and we just kind of finished the day off. But there was just this feeling and I remember in Brownsville, for those of you that remember that day, it rained in the afternoon. It was raining for a while, and I always remember that it was raining that day, and then the sun came out. It was just such a strange and surreal feeling because you felt that you were in a movie, and it wasn't. It was real.
You have such an impeccable memory.
I really do. I remember that it rained that afternoon,
Like,
and it was such a weird and strange
okay, Joel, the
day.
weatherman. I
I
can't even remember how many days it rained last
well,
week, let alone
I remember it.
9/11,
I remember it
24
rain.
years ago.
I remember it rained September 11th that day, and then it's just again such a strange day that you didn't know what was next, and so here we are, 24 years later, and we still remember where we were at. You know, you remember where you were at. Again, it's your birthday, and your son was 6 months old. You were going to go to lunch, and again, I remember that it was raining that day, and so the memory of that is still there, and it still lingers for some of us. But as we continue thinking about social media, let's look at some of those connections.
So it's almost like playing the old telephone game, where you have the cup and then you have the string and then
Yes.
you say something and then you wait. You're like, did they say this?
Yes.
We were playing that game basically because we didn't know what. I'm going to throw this out there, like Tom Brokaw. We didn't know what he was going to say. We didn't know what the newscasters were going to say. We were all plugged in, waiting for the next move, whether it was on the radio, you're listening to AM station, or you're listening to, you're watching ABC, NBC, CBS. You were just waiting for anticipation, what's going to happen next.
And I remember, and we've spoken about this, about the Twin Towers, but we cannot forget that there was a tragedy also in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon,
right.
and then
Yes.
United 93, which was overtaken by the passengers. And again, we don't know what the plan was for that. There, again, misinformation that it was headed to the Capitol, it was headed to the White House, but that tragically, the lives of those passengers also ended in a field out in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So speaking of, I mean, I have a connection with that. It's at, 6 degrees of separation. When I left Brownsville in 7th grade and I moved to Houston, I went to high school, Stratford High School. And so many years later, 9/11 happened. There was actually a former student from Stratford High School, alumni, that was on the plane Her name is Lauren Catuzzi Grancolas. And come to find out, she, again, alumni, her parents had set up a scholarship fund for her. So when I later returned back to work at the high school where I graduated from, in the counseling department, there was a scholarship set up for her. But she was on the United Airlines 93 when that occurred, and she was, she went to Stratford. She was a UT alumni. She worked at Price Waterhouse Coopers. And I mean, that's the only connection that I have. I don't want to say luckily, but I'm sure there was many. I mean, everyone's emotions were upward. And so she wrote a book, You Can Do It. It was for young women and their self-care and their self-esteem. And, you look back and you're like, wow, this family dedicated their lives on her remembrance. I can't imagine all of the lives at 9/11 that happened. The three crashes that occurred, the airplanes, 9/11, or four, excuse me, four. It's just and as time goes on, like my memory, as time goes on, it kind of fades, unless you're Joelle. Time kind of, you just forget. But then you have these stories that you tell your kids. Like I remember telling my oldest, now who's 24, what happened 9/11, what occurred. And so I know for a fact, I remember thinking I need to go back in the military.
You thought about that?
I did. I thought about it, and I almost went back in and re-enlisted, but it didn't happen.
I think a lot of people were feeling that way. I've heard stories of people that, again, older people that said, you know what, I want to get back in, but my age doesn't allow. But afterwards, Catherine, do you remember there was this sense of unity amongst everyone? I remember commercials that were coming out were talking about how our differences unite us and how all these different diverse populations make up the United States. And I remember that fervor of just this excitement about the United States. The New York Yankees were in the World Series that year, and unfortunately they lost to the Arizona Diamondbacks. But I mean, what a wonderful story that would have been. But I mean, obviously, it doesn't make up for the tragedy that happened. But we got behind different causes. I remember one of the things, people lining up around the block to donate blood and to give and to. So there was this sense of unity within the United States, other countries reaching out, and Mexico, Canada, and so many other countries that were giving to the United States, aid to the United States. And so I just remember those little things. I remember the tragedy happened on that Tuesday, and Friday, I remember we had a rally at our school, and everybody's a sea of red, white, and blue. And I think it's still going on today. My nephew goes to one of the high schools, and today they're going to have a pep rally, and everybody was asked to wear red, white, and blue. So, these seniors of high school, let's go back to that, or even freshmen right now, this is before their time. And so we, again, keep that memory alive. But not only do we keep it alive, social media does as well. Good or bad, there are so many things that social media is keeping record of, and us with those memories as well. So when we come back from the break, we'll take a break, excuse me, and we're going to come back and talk about how social media affects not only us in our daily society, in our daily lives, but also how, again, with the research question, it has touched the September 11th and other events and other causes that are out there. And so, good or bad, we'll take a look at both. You're listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio. Thank you so much for being here. We really, again, appreciate you being to be here as part of the show, Library Talk and everything else. So as we were going into the break, we were talking about social media and what social media has done to keep the memory of September 11th alive and how it has continued to be a place where we can archive things, archive, materials, experiences, and so forth. But along with that, one of the things that has happened is misinformation and conspiracy theories and things like that. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But I'll ask you, Catherine, in your social media feed for today, did you put anything on September 11th in the memory of September 11th?
Today, I did not. I did not. I'm very careful on what I put on social media because once it's out there, it goes into a black hole.
Uh huh.
So it's like time stamped. I have not put anything out there today for 9/11.
Okay. Have you seen anything? Have anything come across
Yes.
your
Yes.
friends or your?
So I share my birthday with several of my friends and even my aunt, who's 16 years older than I am. But I share my birthday with obviously many thousands of
Yes,
people.
our
But
principal.
there
That's what I
you
was
go.
talking about.
Yeah. So I have birthday twins, throughout. Matter of fact, one of my childhood friends, we had the same birthday. She was a year older, and so we were in the same elementary school and middle school until I left. So, but no, I did not. But a lot of my friends have posted in remembrance of 9/11. They've posted. Some of them came from New York, moved down to Texas, just remembrance of it. So it started yesterday. With It started yesterday, and then I'm sure it'll continue throughout the weekend.
Throughout the weekend, that's right. It is amazing. And again, I talk about this that I don't have social media, so it's a
Yeah,
little
why
ironic.
is that, Joel?
I don't have social media because I think of that, what you just mentioned earlier, that you're documenting things and they're time stamped. But I really
So you
have
so you just research but you don't post or you don't
no,
use.
Catherine. No, I don't. I do not have social media in terms of Instagram, TikTok,
Facebook,
Facebook. No, none of that. I
Snapchat,
don't do any of that.
X.
None of that. None of that. I stay away from that, and for many reasons, I guess. One of them being that I just maybe don't want to put my life out there. I know a lot of people do post every single thing. I know I talked
Mm-hmm.
about this last year when I discussed this topic about people posting on a Friday afternoon or a Friday night. Oh, making a carne asada, making a barbecue, and
Do you
really, do we
remember the
need to
fad
document?
of pictures of food? People would go around and they would have their phones out and they would take pictures of their
Oh yes,
food
they're and
and
posting pictures
post
about
it.
food. Yes,
Yes,
where they were eating
exactly.
and where they were at, and I don't know. And again, not for any reason other than I don't understand why we would put ourselves out there and why people would be interested, I think, in what certain people have to say. Maybe, I mean, your friends and so forth. But I don't know. The idea of putting myself out there on Instagram or on Facebook rather, it just it doesn't appeal to me. It really does not. And so I'm more of a person that's interested in the research behind it, the psychology behind why people do it, rather than me actually engaging in it. And maybe I'm not able to get a full picture because I'm not on there of how it works. And you hear, oh, this fear of missing out, and FOMO, and you also hear about all these different. Oh, I need to make sure that I'm Instagram ready, and you always have to be Instagram ready, and you always have to be on. And you go to an event, you go to a concert, you go to
Hey,
you know,
wait, 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 wait. Wait. I'm gonna take offense to this of
okay.
where you're going with
Okay,
this.
okay. I'm not okay. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of us are not living in the moment, but rather we're doing these things to post them, to put ourselves out there.
Yeah, but
And again, every teaches them.
right.
Teaches
Well,
them.
and I'll tell you why I do it. I do it because I don't do it to show people like I'm having a great time. It's more of a reflection of what I'm going through. I want people to know, hey, it's a for me, my kids don't live with me. They live in different cities. So my family's spread out. I'm the only one here in Brownsville. So my family's all spread out. Odessa, Arlington, Houston, Wisconsin. And so for me, it's to let them know I'm okay. I'm having a good time, whether it's a concert event, which I love. So I always record and I post, concerts in case somebody that I know happen to be there. That's my thing. But I used to take pictures and post it on social media, like, oh, I'm at this restaurant and check out this.
Okay, so you're one of those that
I
is doing
used
that.
to be.
Okay.
And I still have friends that do that. I'm like, why are you taking a picture?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just chicken.
Again, why are you taking a picture where you just have the barbecue pit on a Friday night? We really need to see that. Do I really need to know that you're doing that? But okay.
But there are some people that are completely obsessed. Like, they want to keep up with the Joneses, right? Or keep up
Yes.
with, the
What they have and
have,
sometimes what
right.
they don't have.
Exactly. And so, but everyone does it for their own
Yes.
special reasons, right? Me personally, I do it just to let people know, like, I'm still around. I'm still here. I'm busy, but in case you're wondering, I'm still vertical. It's
It's Charter Days weekend, and I went to Sombrero Fest.
exactly.
Or it is. You're right. That concert that I'm going to, it maybe you're right. You were. I was in section A. No, I was in section D or whatever the case may be.
Yes,
And
because it's that community, community
Yes.
involvement of being somewhere that I know that one of my friends may be at.
That's true.
But I may not have known that they were going to be there. Sometimes we go last minute to places just because.
Did you pick up on social media from its inception or the get go? Were you one of the ones that
Yes.
signed up early?
Oh yeah,
Really? Okay.
I
Did you have
was. I had
MySpace? For those of you that remember what
MySpace.
MySpace is, precursor to Facebook, and just Facebook came in and just kind of really left MySpace out. Although MySpace still exists I think in a music type format, but Facebook came in and just
Napster?
no, no. I think it is MySpace, but I knew people that right away from the get go, MySpace. And again, I was never interested in it, never signed up, never created an account. And then Facebook. And I've mentioned this last year that a professor early on introduced me to, she's like, hey, have you ever heard of Facebook? And I was like, no. And she's like, oh, all of them, companies are using it and very rudimentary type pages. But she's like, oh, check it out. This is UT Austin's Facebook. And she was already posting a bunch of pictures and so forth. And since then, it just really has never interested me.
But it's actually evolved. I mean, social media can be beneficial, and of course it can't be, but beneficial. I mean, you're promoting your school, you're promoting businesses,
Your brand.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of people, and it's that generational approach, right? So a lot of the older folks are on Facebook, and then
Yes.
we start bleeding into Instagram, and then there's Snapchat, which apparently there's a Snapchat streak. So if you say hello to so many people per
Okay.
day, you're on a streak. And I don't know what the reward is except just saying hi. But I mean, there's so many different facets of social media.
When I was younger and a student, we were doing group projects, and I would ask for my group member's phone number. And we'd share phone numbers, and sometimes they were not even cell numbers, they were landlines. And so recently, my daughter was talking about, she's a college student here at UTRGV, and she was talking about how they were in groups. And I go, hey, Maya, did you get your group's phone number? It's like, no. I'm like, well, how do you get to communicate?
Why would you do that?
We got each other's Snap. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, or our Insta. And so, what's your Insta? And I've heard that term be tossed around as well.
Yes.
And I am, Catherine, I am so out of the vernacular that is used for a lot of those different things. And so I learned them because my daughters and their boyfriends, and so we're talking about some of these things. And yeah, it's just amazing.
But see, now Insta and Facebook kind of link up. So when you post something on Insta, you can actually have it sent to your Facebook. So if you have both, you're golden, right? So
Again.
like my daughter and her husband, they just had their 1 year anniversary.
Well, congratulations to them.
Thank you, wedding anniversary. And so they posted pictures on Instagram, and it just kind of bled into Facebook. So everyone they can see both platforms, right? And I'm sure they have others. My sons, one of them is, well, actually, both of them are in TikTok a lot. So they watch videos that way. My other son, he does Snapchat quite a bit. I mean, so they always have these videos and these reels and these funny memes that they send and stuff. And I'm like, I'm always asking, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm not with the times anymore like I
Nor am
used to
I.
be.
I mean, I don't think I was ever with the times, but I don't understand some of the stuff that's happening. It
I know
is
you've
just
asked me a couple of questions. What does this
I
mean?
really
I
don't.
don't
Yeah,
know. Let me
exactly.
ask.
I don't know what that means. You know, I do want to bring this up because it's kind of lingering here, and I really try not to talk about too serious of topics in our show because I really like to keep things light. But we're talking about misinformation, and we're talking about, how things spread so rapidly through social media. And yesterday was a very unfortunate occurrence with this young man, Charlie Kirk. And we're not going to go into specifics of it, but he's at a rally and things happened, and very, very unfortunate. He left behind a family, and the idea that you can't speak your mind because others are taking it to extremes. It's terrible. But I bring this up because um, quickly on social media, the rumor spread and the rhetoric spread and all of the memes. There was a meme that spread so quickly, and I'll mention this for those of you that know or may not know, but there is a car dealership here in Brownsville, Charlie Clark, and I know it extends all the way to El Paso, I believe, and Charlie Clark Motors, and somebody posted a meme. It's not Charlie Clark, but Charlie Kirk, and these pictures of these two individuals. How quickly they created this meme to talk about what had
Where
happened.
do people find the time?
Exactly the time, and you know,
I
it's such a traumatic
yesterday I
thing.
yesterday I got the news from my son. In Odessa, he posted the information, and then all of a sudden, our family snap or family group chat just exploded. Just what was happening, all these things that were occurring. You know, the events that took place, the videos and the graphic videos, and just everything. Like I felt like I was getting the news information from them rather than hearing it from, Fox News or from somewhere else of source. And it wasn't until yesterday evening that I was still trying to figure out what was happening. And my, I had class last night, and I'm talking to some of my students, and they're like, hey, Dr. Autry, did you hear about what happened? And I'm like, oh yeah, it was unfortunate. And we didn't talk about it in detail at all, but it was just, we brought it up, and it was unfortunate. But it's that misinformation that we're still waiting to find out who done it.
Yes, and I think even
Even
this
this
morning,
morning,
we
right?
still don't know who may have done
Right.
it, but the misinformation got spread,
Yes.
and pictures of the alleged assailant, and it turns
It's
out
like
that this
how rumors
gentleman
get
was
started, right?
exactly, and we talked about, and one of the platforms that we haven't spoken about is TikTok, and the short videos and the quick things that happen on social media through, TikTok, and it just explodes. So many different things that were going on, news that was happening on TikTok, things that were just being spread, and I'm sure if you go online today, there are, probably short videos on TikTok about that incident and also going back 24 years to September 11th. And so the idea that we can post things so easily and misinformation can be spread, earlier we mentioned the word conspiracy and all these conspiratorial things that are going on about, oh, it was this group, it was that group. And again, as a researcher, as a librarian, our job is to find truth in misinformation. There's a reason why we spread these conspiracy theories. There's a reason why we spread misinformation because it answers and fills in those issues of a or those parts of an issue that we cannot answer. And so,
And it's also perspective. You have the Gen X perspective, you have the
yes,
Gen Z perspective. We as we tend to go back and we reflect all of these things that happened and these triggers that occur. But then you have the Gen Zers that and the Xers that they have a different mindset now.
Yes.
You know, everyone is on social media, everyone's on their phone. It's just a matter of what that looks like. You know, some people are doing research while they're walking or they're texting or, you know, I remember when it was first coming out, people were taking pictures, selfies, right? Everywhere
Yes.
you turn around, you were taking a selfie, and you're like, why are you in the bathroom taking a selfie? But it's that information that you're trying to spread, you know, and unfortunately, it's just that certain type of content that we want to share with our family, our friends, or just influencers, right? Back then, we didn't have social media influencers like there are
No.
now.
No.
Now it's everywhere.
And that is the thing. A friend of mine, son graduated top 5% of his class at Hannah High School here in Brownsville, and he had offers to go to UT. He had offers to go to Texas A&M on scholarships, but he refused because he wanted to be an influencer. His dad didn't even know what that was, but he's like, Mijo wants to be an influencer. I was like, okay, well, she's going to be an influencer. Ended up not working out for him because I think for every influencer, you have so many that it doesn't work out for them. But a friend of the family, his son was going to be an influencer, and that's all he wanted to do. Father had no idea what that meant, but he's like, okay, mijo, pues if you want to be an influencer, try it. He did try it, didn't go anywhere, and now he's working doing something else. I'm not going to mention what, but
Okay.
it didn't work out for him. But do you
But
think,
at least he
Catherine,
took a chance.
he took a chance, but
Yeah.
do you think that social media is influencing a lot of our young children and young students here at the university? Is social media really either challenging them, or are they saying, I can do this, I can do a better job than what are these other people are doing?
Ooh, I'm on the fence on that because
Okay.
in some aspects, yes, it is helping them because it's those conversations that we can't have with our parents or we can't have with people. Again, we talked about this a year ago about, you know, our parents are supposed to be there for us and help us and motivate us, and some of the students just don't have the parents that are there to help them and motivate them. Like your friend's father was like, "Yeah, go ahead, be an influencer."
Whatever that is.
But hindsight is, what if they're like, no, no, mijo, you're not going to do that. You're going to go do something else. It's that mental that mental stability that right now social media influences, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's theater, whether
Business and
it's
everything.
everywhere you turn. Like you go to a restaurant and there's a QR code and you're like,
Yes.
where's the menu? Well, you have to
You
scan
have
the
to
QR
scan it.
code. So that means I have to have a phone. What if you're grounded?
Yeah,
What if
exactly.
you forgot your phone? What if your Apple Pay or your wallet is not with you? Like, what happens? You're just out of luck. You're not part of this generation.
That was happening a lot right after 2020 when they were giving no
Yes.
more paper menus. You had to have your phone on hand. Thank you so very much, everybody, for listening. And thank you so much, Catherine, for being on the show. It's such a wonderful conversation. It's so great to have guests on the program. And we are, as we go into the second season, looking at some guests that are either going to be returning from last year or some new guests altogether. So I'm really looking forward to season 2. We're going to go to one music break, and then we'll come back with our closing comments. But again, thank you so very much for allowing us the opportunity to be part of your Thursday morning here on Library Talk and everything else, only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station. Thank you so much, everybody, again, for joining us for Library Talk and everything else. We are getting ready to close out, and it is always the time just goes by so quickly when I have such a wonderful guest and when we are together. So I want to thank again Dr. Catherine Autry for being here in the studio. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been fun.
I want to ask you as we close out, when it comes to social media, what do you feel is something that maybe young users that are getting into social media, what would be some of the pitfalls that they need to be aware of or be careful with?
Joelle, for me, I think they need to be aware of time spent too much on their phones and too much on social media. As much as we want them to have their friends, around, you have to have family time
So shut off your phones for a while.
for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Dinner,
Yeah.
family time.
At the movies.
At the, yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many blue screens that hit
Yes,
their
when you go to
face.
the
Yes.
exactly. And I mean, I know the movie industry is trying to combat that with all sorts of tools and announcements and promotions, but yes, you still see those blue screens, and that's what I was talking about, living in the moment.
Right.
And of course, you want for posterity's sake, if you go to a concert, something that you've been waiting for in a group that you've been wanting to see in your favorite band, you want to record the opening because
Or you
you
want to
remember
use your
posterity.
phone for the light, right?
That's
Like,
true too. And so, you so there are, and there okay, so with that, what are some of the positive things that you would encourage somebody that's thinking about going into social media?
well, I mean, you can do research on your phone. You can do research anywhere. You're a YouTuber, right? So,
Me?
yeah.
Yes, I use YouTube a lot. I like to use YouTube. That is one tool that I do use continuously.
So, I mean, there's positive aspects in that approach where, businesses, you follow us on social media,
Yes.
follow us on X, follow us on Facebook, because I mean, you don't want to miss out on an event that's coming up in the community. You don't want to miss out on research that you're trying to hurry up and do for your class. We try to, as our older generation, we try to promote a lot of that to our younger selves, our younger students, to say, hey, follow social media. So we're also kind of at fault
It's
in
true.
that. But we want to promote the positive and the negative,
And
but just let everyone know that they have a decision to make.
and we want them to be responsible users of social media. I think that's ultimately what we want. So be careful of the misinformation
Yes.
and the spreading of all sorts of things that, you know, just not true. I want to thank again my guest, Dr. Catherine Autry, for being in the studio, and I thank you. And I also want to thank Ariana and the rest of the staff at UT RGV Vaquero Radio. We have so many new shows that are coming in and some wonderful shows that are still happening. And so thank you so much for continuing to support this show. And I want you to continue to support this show, but I also want you to continue some of the other shows that are produced by Vaquero Radio. So until next week, thank you so very much. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of our first show for our second season. We'll see you all next time. You've been listening to Library Talk and everything else only on Vaquero Radio, the Valley's student station.